Valhalla and Dendy Newtown before Dendy was bought up by Icon. So and so yeah, Valhalla closed down. Chevelle was having troubles. Chevelle was one of the last that sort of held out, and Dendy got bought by Icon. So just showing mainly mainstream stuff. So we kind of got annoyed with it. Sydney Film Festival was our last hope, and at the time, Claire Stewart was running it, and it just became super conservative. It was catering to a really conservative crowd, and none of the films that we wanted to see was making it here. So we stupidly kind of just went, oh, let's start our own festival. And um, I say stupidly because we had no idea what the hell we were getting ourselves into. It was a baptism by fire. It was really challenging, and we had no money. That was the other thing. No government support, no money, nothing. And it was actually we just were lucky enough to run into Century Venues, who just opened up the Factory Theatre, who also had no shows because they just opened up. So they took a gamble on us, and mainly because there was um, an old guy who was working there, who I thought was like um, the techie or something, or the labourer. Um, Ended up that he owned all of Century Venues, and he used to be a projectionist. And and at the time when we had the meeting, they were like umming and ahhing, and the old guy that I just went off and started speaking to for no particular reason, just because like I thought, I always liked talking to techies and stuff. He probed me, and then he just sort of nodded to the executives and just went, let him have his festival here. And that was it. It was that easy. It was just, it also goes to show how, in an age of formalities, how an informal chat can actually get you somewhere. Um, so that was a nice little story of our beginnings. But yeah, but because they took a chance on us, we were able to get a foothold, and sort of then fit into the community in Sydney. Since 2007, a lot of things happened, like UNESCO naming Sydney the city of film. Sorry,
When was
um,
that, Stefan?
that was in 2009 from memory. So we had a really timely entrance into. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off my emails. Yeah, we kind of had a really timely entrance into the film community in Sydney, because at that time there was only about 7 or 10 festivals, somewhere between 7 and 10 festivals in Sydney. Now there's like almost 80. Oh, I don't know about this year. This year will cull it a bit.
Do you mean film festivals, Stefan?
Film festivals, yes. At the time
Wow,
there were
80
very
film
few.
festivals.
Yeah, there was very few, and that's why UNESCO ended up naming us
Ah,
City of Film. Um, so not just because of production, but also because of festivals. Festivals also slowly. It was at the cusp of the digital revolution. So when we started, we were still playing tape, and people were still playing film. Um, and because we went through that era of change, once things got to DCP and digital, a lot more festivals opened up and popped up. But because we did the hard yards when there was analog, we were able to get a good foothold. And Inner West Council was fantastic. They recognized us straight away. And like about 2008, I think, was our first small grant, but for us it was huge. Giving us, I think, $2,000 or something. But that was just really big.
wow, wow.
Yeah. um, and
Amen.
I know, but it got really good because that $2,000 was more about the support. They put us in contact with developers. They put us in contact with like property developers that part of their mandate was helping out artists and cultural institutes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there was a time they were trying to find us an office space before Sydney College of the Arts had given us one, which they helped us out again this year, because now that we've moved from Roselle, they were able to put us in contact with a property developer called Danius, multi-million dollar property developer, and they're looking for an office for us now.
That's from the Inner West Council.
Inner West Council, yeah. Inner West Council is fantastic. They when they can get access to money, they actually, they're nice enough to alert us to it as well.
That's great.
Which rarely happens, yeah. What's I forgot the Inner West Council mayor's name.
That's with D, I think.
Yeah, it does start with D, actually.
Greenie. It's a Greenie.
Yeah, but he urged us to put in for a grant, and it was last year, which landed us with the biggest grant we ever had, which was $20,000. So
wow, great.
Yeah, but he's really amazing. He's the type of guy you can just Darcy Byrne. That's his name.
Right, Darcy. Yeah.
This particular year was not so. It was only because they had access to state level funding.
Yeah.
So they pointed us in that direction. So they kind of said, "Hey, we think you'd be eligible for this." And where was I at? And the reason Inner West Council was so supportive, and the reason that we kind of fit into the film community so well, was because we had a strong ethos. It was a very non-commercial, artist-driven ethos. We really wanted to. We had no beefs with industry. We had no beefs with independent artists. We just wanted to become a platform, a stepping stone in an industry. We came from very indie, grassroots situation, but we also knew that everyone needed to live and needed to make money, so they could use us as a stepping stone. And because of that, we became really open to a lot of people. And our only mandate was that we wanted to screen works that did something different. It was really that simple. We try to bring it right down to, we don't care if you're a multi-million dollar project, as long as you're trying to do something different and you fit the ethos of an indie or a grassroots project, then we're fine. And because of that ethos, we were able to get high-end artists like Alex Proyas, or last year we had I'm sorry, their names escape me, but we have really high-end filmmakers come to us, and they actually give our audiences way more time than they give high-end conferences and stuff that they go to, because they realize that everyone's genuinely there for their own artistic purposes, and they feel like they'd be cheating them if they don't spend time with them. Alex Proyas, I think, spent like 3 hours with our audience, and then went to the cafe afterwards with them.
Yeah. Can I just check and see that everybody understands what indie is?
Those something like independent films.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
great.
Not connected to a studio or necessarily connected to a big funding, sort of government funding body. And what we found too is that a lot of these high-end sort of profile people, they connected a lot more to our audience because that's where they started. It's really that simple. They all started somewhere and they didn't start at the top. So they really connected. But yeah, so another interesting thing about our festival is that we were all filmmakers, and even to this day, a lot of our governing body is made up of filmmakers. There's something to filmmakers representing filmmakers, or artists representing artists. There's a difference in the way you approach things. There's not we're not curators first and foremost. We're artists first and foremost, and we curate from that perspective. So our program is different. If you we also have really good relationships with every other film festival in Sydney, but also in Australia and sometimes internationally. And we've gained that through, we're very small, we're very tiny, but they recognize the programming. And that comes by virtue of being filmmakers and having relationships with filmmakers. So when, for an example, one of our films we had last year was called, what was it called? It was called, let me have a look, sorry. It was actually a film that had come from Sydney College of the Arts. Here we go, sorry. Use Me, it was called Use Me. And Julian Shaw had gone through the MMI program, and he was at Sydney College of the Arts. He had some notable films that played at Berlinale, won awards in the UK. So he had a track record after he left our college, but because of our relationship to the producers, to him, we were able to secure a Sydney screening. And he's on right now. There was a year that went by that they tried to get their film into South by Southwest, tried to get their film everywhere, and everyone knocked them back. Absolutely everyone knocked them back. A year prior, I had asked the producers for the premiere of the film, and they wanted to hold off because they didn't feel our festival was big enough. And I respected that. I've encountered that many a time. I didn't burn my bridge. I didn't tell them to get stuffed or anything like that. And everyone knocked them back. And so they ended up having, I'm pretty sure it was the world premiere with us. They had the world premiere with us. Once they had the world premiere with us, they ended up getting 10 other screenings, invitations for screenings all around the world.
So what was the name of that film again?
It was called Use Me.
Use Me.
You can find it on Netflix now.
Oh, wow.
They almost had no chance to screen it on Netflix. So this was a prime example. I actually spoke to the producer because the producer is a really close friend of mine. And I said to him, you should premiere with us. It's not a film that will make it into South by Southwest or Berlinale. They're A-list film festivals. We're a B-list film festival. And this film is not an A-list film. They didn't listen to me. And I even said that year, I said, next year you might not screen with us because it's a year old and we may not have any space for it. So consider this carefully. What ended up happening, they came to me again and I didn't want to be mean about it. So I let it play, knowing that I would have killed the film. And I told the producers, I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for Julian. Because Julian's worked his ass off on this film and you guys mismanaged the film. And I want you to know you mismanaged the film and you didn't listen to advice that we gave you and other festivals gave him as well. And luckily we gave the film that chance because now it's with Netflix. Once it screened with us and played at 10 other film festivals, it got picked up by Netflix. And that's a really good success story, but also shows that you need a small stepping stone for those independent films. You can't just go straight to the top, especially when you're not sort of, I was going to say Harvey Weinstein, but he's at the bottom now. Sorry, you're on mute, Robin. I couldn't.
It's a whole other thing now, isn't it? As soon as
he's a criminal.
World now, isn't it? Yeah. He's like a crippled in himself. He's crippled himself. It's amazing.
Oh, he's despicable, man. But anyhow, so there's a good example of how not only did we fit into, and it was the relationship with the filmmaker that was key there. It wasn't the producers that wanted to make money, that were being selfish and whatever not, and didn't understand the new lay of the land, which also shows what festivals have become. Festivals have become a distribution node. Distributors, there are still distributors as gatekeepers, but they won't pick up your film unless it's got traction and has a pre-made audience, no matter how small. And it has to start small sometimes. It can't start screening on Netflix. It maybe has to start at a small festival and then get picked up by Melbourne Film Festival, then get picked up by Perth, then Brisbane, then South by Southwest. So it usually, the old logic of producers are that you start, and if you read any distribution guidelines on the internet or anything like that, they always say you start at the top tier, you start at A-list festivals, exhaust them first, then go to B-tier festivals. But the reality is top-tier festivals only pick up top-tier directors and producers. So unless you've got a pre-established relationship, you've already screened with them, that's when they'll give you a chance to show another film of yours. Rotterdam Film Festival is a really good example. I don't know if you would remember Marilyn Fairskye, Robin. She that's a great example where she has a relationship with Rotterdam. She had screened with them in the past, so now as long as those curators are still there, and it's the same in the art world, I assume. I can't hear, you're on mute, sorry.
It's like the Sundance Film Festival. It's like Linda Woolworth, you know. Oh, not Linda. What's her name? What's her name? Woolworth. Who's worked in the Sundance Film Festival, has been picked up by Sundance Film Festival every year now. Was it? You know her name? Woolworth?
No.
3D. She does 3D
okay.
filmmaking. She went through Sydney College of the Arts 20 years ago, and she won the big award last year from the Sundance Film Festival.
Wow. Yeah. So a lot of it is about those relationships, locally and internationally. But yeah, so anyhow, so long and short, if I had to boil it down to what a festival is about, and it's relationships with distributors, other festivals, artists, filmmakers, producers, media and PR, local businesses, education. They're absolutely key because you are part of a community, and I mean, Sydney College of the Arts operates like this. It's their MO. So, and that's thinking of going into the industry. It's all about that. You know, you're going to get jobs not just because of your skills. Your skills are just the prerequisite. How, you know, if you're not skilled, you're never going to get another job. But if you can't retain relationships and understand the importance of those relationships, you're also not going to get jobs.
It's like in any industry, though. It's those relationships and how you establish them, and then how you care for them is a really important part of the process.
Completely.
Some people, that's all they do is build relationships. It's the whole kind of intense networking system, which can be very obsequious and a little bit up your nose. But it is important to establish professional as well as good friendships with people, because it's, people have to trust one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's interesting, talking about that idea that you don't go to the A list. I don't know if you know the work of Sue Goldfish. She did a work 3 or 4 years ago, which was called The Last Goldfish. And she's someone who's done no film work at all. Because of the style of the work and because of it being a very experimental piece of documentary history, she made a film about her Jewish family, all through basically through photographs. She got picked up by the Sydney Film Festival because I think they thought it was such a unique and personal story that it's like in the art world, they pick up young artists who they think they could discover.
Mm-hmm.
So occasionally those big festivals will pick up someone who they think is unique and they wanted to be seen to discover. But it's a very hard thing to find.
It's interesting because I only know a couple of programmers from Sydney Film Festival. I know Nishan personally, but he also hires a lot of programmers to program the other bits, like Freak Me Out, Richard Kuiper's, like the documentaries, and a lot of it is about how people advocate for films.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'd get a film. Here's a good example. I don't know if you know George Giddos.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do know George Giddos.
Yeah. So George Giddos,
one of the biggest soft promoters in the world.
Yeah, I know. But they've got a relationship with us all the way back to 2008.
Yeah.
We premiered The Miscreants of Tallywood, and no one, including Sydney Film Festival, would touch it, and it's only once we screened it that then Sydney Film Festival screened it the year after that.
Oh, really?
And then we had to we worked with George because they had said that they had screened a work in progress with us. It wasn't the actual premiere.
Yeah.
We didn't care because that brought us kudos and established a really strong relationship with George, to the point that when Snow Monkey came out, he brought it to us to premiere.
Really?
And I actually said to George, I'm like, we will premiere this in the Harbeck, but realistically, shouldn't you run it past Sydney Film Festival first?
Oh.
I gave away the premiere to Sydney Film Festival because it wasn't the best film thing for George or the film. I know how George works, and I became good friends with him. So I'm like, as a friend, I'm telling you, screen with Sydney Film Festival because you'll get a bigger splash than you will with us. So it was the opposite of Julian. We try to be really fair and realistic. Like we don't. I don't really want to retain or hold a film back if it can get bigger by going to Sydney Film Festival. I'd much rather that.
Stefan, there's a question here on the side. Elena, do you want to actually ask it? Do you want to speak your voice?
Hello, should be working out.
Can we do this now? Can we bring in a few questions now, Stefan?
Yeah. I think it's a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I asked was, so we were talking about like picking up and the film works. So I would like to know, how do film festivals, no matter it's Sydney Underground Film Festival or Sydney Film Festival or other film festivals, how do they find and pick up the films, and like what are the processes or the criteria?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a really good question, and I'm revealing a really big secret here. Not about us, but about other festivals. Because to us, it's not. For us, it's really simple. Like we have a couple of programmers. There's myself. There's myself, Catherine. This guy Nathan. I kind of trained him. He's so good. I would say he's better than me at times. Um, Nathan and Jack Sargent. But the reality is, we're such a community that we have people suggesting titles on Facebook that we follow up, and we actually encourage um, a bigger network. Technically, our festival is kind of programmed by every other little festival in Sydney. So you got Night of Horror, you've got the Iranian Film Festival, you've got who else do we know? Oh, the Korean Film Festival. A lot of these people end up programming for us inadvertently because they, and we do for them as well. So it's a really relationship based thing, because we might get a film that doesn't suit our sort of criteria, which our criteria for us is we really want it to be doing something different. I need to be able to, when I talk to media, I need to be able to go, yes, we picked that film because that was the first drug film in China, which is, for example, one of the films a few years ago. There was a film that came out about, I think it was meant to be Special K use in China, but I don't think they stated what the drug is. But I was just blown away that they were able to make a film about drug use, social drug use in China. And for us, it was nothing new. For us, like a Western film, like drug films have been made since like the 50s. But in China, for the government restrictions to be relaxed and to have this content in a film was a big thing. So I was able to talk about that with the media. So as long as I can justify to our criteria, which is we're a discovery festival. So this is another thing. Every festival has their own set of criteria, and you kind of have to look at what they are. A Night of Horror would be horror. We're a discovery festival. We want the films to be doing something different, something new. Does it look? Is there an aesthetic that they're using that's challenging? Is it politically challenging? Is it is it during the storyline? Is it borderline illegal? You know.
I know. I must admit, my first experience of the Underground Festival, and I say this over and over again, every year I say this, my first experience of the Underground Festival was going to see Donkey Love. I don't think you get to see that in many places, and that was really about first sexual experiences for boys in Colombia with donkeys.
I got a funny story about that film. We had a phone call from the producers, and they're like, we're thinking of submitting this film to you, and I'm like, all right, go on. And they're like, oh, we just want to know your criteria, and I'm like, oh, look, if it's a boring documentary about blueberries or something, just don't send it to us. There's no point. We're not going to screen it. And they're like, no, how far can we go? Like, what are you willing to show? And I'm like, I'm willing to show anything. I'm like, the riskier, the better. And they're like, yeah, but where does that line? They were really worried. They're like, where does that line rest? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get arrested for a film. That's what I said to him. I go, there's the line.
It was really kind of like, wow, that was mind-blowing. I mean, and it had such an effect. It's like that film, and Irreversible in a way, two films I really hated, but also really found fascinating. They were both of them were kind of like a slightly abhorrent.
Yeah.
And I mean, Irreversible was just such an awful film. So extraordinary, though. Did you see that?
Yeah. We I've got a story about Gaspar Noé too, but but yeah, no, Irreversible was
Oh,
the most violent film I've ever seen in my life.
it was so overwhelming. But as a film and the technical approach to filmmaking, it was just so extraordinary. That whole reverse, and how the actual the structure of it being so important to the understanding of it and the naming of it and the experiencing of it. You can't turn it back once you've experienced that. And it was so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually ended up calling Gaspar Noé.
Really?
Well, annoying him, but yeah, because of Enter the Void, because Enter the Void was being released, and Sydney Film Festival didn't screen it, and the distributors, they're French distributors, and the French distributors have a reputation of being really hard to deal with.
Really? Yeah. Well, that's not unusual.
And and this particular distributor is called Wild Bunch. They're the most notorious in all the industry. Everyone, the minute you mention Wild Bunch, everyone rolls their eyes.
All right.
And there was no chance in hell that we'd ever get the film. So I ended up finding Gaspar Noé's phone number and calling him at 2 a.m. and asking him for the film. And he was so annoyed. He's like, talk to the distributors, don't ring me up. But what happened, he ended up contacting the distributors going, this dude from Sydney Underground Film Festival's harassing me, just give him the damn film. So we ended up getting the film.
Good. Yeah, you just have to go straight to the source. I mean, that's the way to do it. If you're constantly going through those producers or distributors, they put you at the bottom of the bottom of the pile. Just got to be, and that's great. That's the thing. You've sometimes just got to be really forceful and just direct and just go for it.
And be tenacious without being an asshole, sort of thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
I want to actually promote to everybody, sorry to Stefan, I just want to ask everybody to start actually adding your questions on the side here so we can actually take the questions from the side. Alana started it off. It'd be really good if everybody else could follow suit because it's a great way of cataloguing the essays so that we can see what we're talking about. And we can keep them at the end. I mean, we've got, say, just take the essays from the ones you uploaded. And if anybody's got any other questions that have evolved from that, that's really great.
Cool. But just to wrap up Alina's question, we look at what each festival stands for, what they've played before, because they do have a criteria. They don't necessarily publish the criteria because it's curation, it's personal taste, literally personal taste. But you get an idea of what they've played before. Bigger festivals, though, just so you know, there's a circuit. There's a circuit that starts at Sundance, Cannes, South by Southwest, and Toronto, and there's a few others. But they kick off a circuit, and every other festival looks and cherry picks from those festivals. So, and then you combine that with personal taste. There's a few discovery festivals out there, and Sundance has the what do you call it? The lab, Sundance Lab or whatever I think it's called. So they're a little bit of a discovery festival. South by Southwest is also discovery, but also they support Austin, Texas. So doing your research on a festival is really important.
Yeah, that's a little bit like, when you go for an exhibition or a gallery for a show, you've got to know the gallery, you've got to be going to it. So like going to the festivals, the more festivals you go to, the more you understand what they're actually showing. And, if you can target them because you know what they're showing, that's the best way to kind of go about it. You can really, if you've got to know the places where your work is appropriate. There's no point in putting your work into the Iranian Film Festival if you're making a Chinese film,
exactly.
So you've got to make a film that really is relevant, and or not make a film, that find the place that's relevant to you, and really court the people in there as well. Get to know them if you really want to do that.
I just had a question here to talk about.
Who's that question from?
From Dee Woo.
Dee Woo, do you want to speak? Do you want to read your question out?
Would you mind to share something about linking with supporting partners like the Go Guys and Red Giant? Like, is it very easy or hard to connect with this kind of company?
Yeah, sure. Look, partnerships and sponsorship is most probably the hardest thing about running a film festival. I hated doing sponsorship and partnerships. Funnily enough, it became my strongest point. And I hated myself for being able to do it.
I know that kind of feeling.
Because you got to be a salesman, and I hate being a salesman. But I found that I was the best salesman for it because I hated doing it.
But also because the reason why you become the best salesman is because you're so passionate about what you're doing as well, and you understand it.
Exactly. So in terms of sponsorship, yes, that honesty is absolute gold, because if they can see that you are honest about what you do and you're not there to take stuff off them, but you're there to connect them to your audience, then they're in. So the major thing is you always have to think about that it's not altruistic. Supporting partners and sponsorship, they're not altruistic at all. They want to know what they're going to get out of this. So my job is, because I want to keep the festival at that grassroots level. I really enjoy that. So when I approach partners, I'm really honest that I'm like, you're never touching our festival, you're never touching the ethos of our festival, and that's why you want us. Because our audience is genuine and genuinely there as a community. So if you come on board, you're getting access to that genuineness. And they respect that, strangely. They respect that I tell them that they're never having to say in anything that we do. That's what they're after. They're after that authentic audience experience. One tip for the sponsors: don't ask for money. No one's going to give you money. That we had to learn that the hard way. Or if money comes, it comes in very particular forms and comes after a long time. Yeah, you need a track record. You need at least 10 years up your sleeve before you can ask for money. But getting free stuff, that's a different story. So like alcohol and stuff like that, like we have no trouble every week because we're like, hey, we have a ready-made audience. We've got 5,000 people there. You got a new product? Do you want to get it out to our audience? Our audience wants free beer. You're getting a new product. Why not?
So Stefan, so then in relationship to William's question, what did Go Get? How did Go Get sponsor you? What did they give?
So Go Get gives us the cars that we pick up the filmmakers from the airport and stuff like that with. Okay. So they give us cars to drive around with. Red Giant gives us prizes for the awards, and it's a no-brainer for them because they have. I don't know, Go Get, it's not so, they could really sponsor any event. But Red Giant, it's a no-brainer because it's filmmakers and film cinephiles. So, instead of running some exorbitant sort of online marketing thing or whatever, just go straight to the source of people who like films. So that would be my tip for that is, don't ask for money, ask for stuff, and then everyone will be fine.
Yeah. Can I ask the other two to actually write a question up each? Maggie and Gia? Alana, do you want to, or William, do you want to write another one? Oh, here we go. Yeah, good.
So Elena wrote, how could you explain other expenses? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
So I'll just read my question. So I read the article. So you talk about venue, design, printing, advertising, and public relation, and some day-to-day operations. So I just want to know how each one works, and like what is the biggest expense, and like, so you said you can get sponsorship from GoGet, so you can pick the filmmakers up. And like I just want to know other expenses, and like where does the money come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest expenses are the venue. The venue is a huge expense. The venue is literally half our budget. And the reason it's literally half our budget is because they're taking the risk along with us, and they take 50% of all ticket sales. So it is another secret I'm revealing, but every film festival pretty much, they won't tell you this, but 50% is usually the going rate. So half your ticket sales have just gone down the drain purely by being at a particular venue.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard. You give or take 10%. If you're a smaller festival, they'll take sort of 60%. If you're a bigger festival, they'll take only 40. So half that money goes straight away. And the next expense too is from distributors. So if you look at our programming, we have like what we call tentpole films. The films that are higher end films that attract people to look at the program. So then they'll go to the smaller films, to the indie films and whatever not. So like Gaspar Noé, when we got that was a tentpole film. When we had Gaspar Noé's Love there in 3D, that film cost us $10,000, and it ended up, I think we ended up losing $1,000, even with all the ticket sales and stuff like that. We ended up losing $1,000 on that screening, and for us it was a lost leader, because everyone was talking about the film that Sydney Film Festival failed to get, because Sydney Film Festival actually put out a press release saying that they were getting that film, and then they failed to get that film. And then, so we made it our mission to secure it because it was in the wake of that press. So we thought that the press that we got behind that was way better than anything. So they're the two biggest costs. There's tons of little costs, and I'd have to go through the budget. But
Stefan, how much do you pay each artist, each filmaker for their film?
It varies. We try and pay nothing. That's our goal, is to pay nothing. But when you get an agent or a distributor in the middle between you and the filmmaker, it's really hard. And then our next step after trying to pay nothing is trying to do a door split.
Okay.
So we try and go, okay, the venue takes 50%. How's about we do 25% with you? So we go halves. Okay. So then we get 25, the filmmaker gets 25, and the venue gets 50. And that's the best case scenario. But dealing with American films or European films, they want upfront money.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the most we've ever paid for a film was last year, was Harmony Korine's
the drug one with McCarthy.
Yeah, that was the most we've ever paid for a film, and I never want to pay. Yeah, it was like $5,000 or something.
Whoa.
Yeah, I never wanted to pay that ever again.
No, it's a lot. Yeah, but there were a lot of people there for it though as well.
That's right, and these are the things you got to weigh up. And so we end up basically our budget it's never in the red. Like, we never lose money, because the minute we start losing money, we start to thinking about shutting down. But we never make money. We usually like, maybe we have $1,000 left over for the next year to put into, I don't know, PR or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maggie, would you like to ask your question? Which one do you want to ask?
Maybe the first one. Hi, Stefan. What situation will Underground Film Festival face during the coronavirus?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
a good question.
yeah, will shut down for this year, and what consequence will happen?
Well, because we're looking at potentially delaying or moving it, or just running in a different form, like maybe running an online shorts program or something like that. It's really hard, because you're being forced. You know, I mean, you can't, as long as the government restrictions are in, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So I guess we decided to wait and see how long these government restrictions are going to be in, because we're in September. So there's if things go really well for Sydney, we might be able to run it. I want to run this year, because it means, if we're one of the first film festivals to run, it means we get access to every single film that no one was able to play.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But in saying that, I personally want Take 48 to run. I personally want, because you can run that online no matter what.
Yeah, no, that was a really good thing. Good. That was last year, was the first year, wasn't it?
Yeah. I personally want at least the shorts to run online, even if we have to delay the features. So it really, yeah, we use, it's all, I mean, but there's no problem even with putting it on hold for a year.
Yeah.
These are extreme circumstances, and
They are.
so I think pulling it apart and running it in different iterations, like running Take 48 and running maybe shorts online, is maybe a good option. We've got to fully decide what we're going to do, but it's definitely not going to be in the same fashion as it was last year, purely because of the nature of government restrictions. So, yeah.
Gia, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, because last year I've seen the Take 48 and found that one of my favorite film, just like slightly close to the mainstream commercial short movies. So I just want to know how, have you considered how to make more audience understand and accept it in the movie?
No, that's actually not a bad question at all, because part of our ethos is actually expanding our audience. And it's one of the troubles we had really early on. By being called an underground film festival, it's like you alienate a lot of people. They're like, oh, we don't like underground stuff, we're not going to go to it. So it took a lot of work, actually, because of the name, to pull people in. And what we tend to do is we try and find films that are on the borderline. That are that's why Harmony Korine's film last year is a really good example. Harmony Korine is a pretty out there filmmaker. He's one of the most out there filmmakers, but he's in Hollywood. Being in Hollywood and being experimental and avant-garde, and he was fully independent for ages. They're the people we target, because then people can kind of be exposed to, they go in there thinking, I'm going to go watch Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
But no, it's Matthew McConaughey in a crazy art house Harmony Korine flick. So we like to cross those lines, and the more we can kind of, we had to take a different strategy too when we market our festival. Rather than marketing it as art house or experimental or what we had to do, we had to take a line where we're marketing our festival as adventurous, fun and adventurous and exciting. Oh, it's like a roller coaster. It's like the roller coaster ride of film festivals, you know. So we had to actually, the spin had to change. And it's only when we change that spin, when we have proper PR people on board to do that, then the world sort of opened up for us and our audiences started growing. People started going, oh, well, you know, let's not, you know, let's go to that festival. That's exciting and challenging and you know, but really it's just avant-garde and arty and indie. Right? There's just giving people an excuse to be able to let themselves go there. So, yeah.
So we now in the kind of like got 5 more minutes to go. Has anybody got a question that's come up from the talk that you'd like to ask? And I was really interested in I've lost it now. Lost my page. The article by Lauren Harris. Lauren Harris is obviously, is she from Sydney or is
Yeah, she's from, I think she's from UNSW, I think.
Okay. So I mean, it was interesting, that idea that, I mean, now I wonder, you know, the changes that have happened that you've seen happening in the distribution since Netflix has come about, the Netflix syndrome. Because, I mean, she's talking about the distribution, that film festivals are a place of distribution. And you said that something was picked up, Use Me, because of, you know, that Netflix took it up after it had gone through the festivals, you know. So do you see yourself now, I mean, as maybe not, maybe the Underground Film Festival, maybe Sydney Film Festival, as a point of distribution, and does that distribution then enter into the Netflix world rather than the cinema world now?
Absolutely. Festivals, and strangely niche festivals more than bigger festivals, have become a very important chain in the distribution network. See, Netflix are premiering stuff now straight from Cannes. So Cannes banned Netflix from actually a great example is I was chasing Orson Welles' last film, and it premiered on Netflix. It didn't premiere at Cannes. It didn't premiere at Sundance. One of the most sought after films in the last 100 years of cinematic history.
Wow.
Premiered on Netflix.
When was that though?
That was I think it was last year.
When did he do? When was the last film?
Oh, so Orson Welles' last film, he there was this mythological long lost film.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up.
But it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Orson Welles' last movie. The Other Side of the Wind. That's right. And
is he directing it or is he acting in it?
He started filming it and he only got so far in it, and then he had to be pieced together, and then they made a making of as well. But it's just amazing that such a historically significant piece of cinema premiered on Netflix, and I think that really pissed Khan off, and that was like the last straw where Khan went, "You're banned from coming to Khan."
There's another question here, but just for a last one, well, what do you think about the relationship that now we have to Netflix? Is that dirtying our artistic world?
Yeah, no, I don't believe so at all. It's just a shift in the you know, you just, instead of having dandies and cinema chains, you've got Netflix that are the stronghold. And but it actually reiterates the importance of niche film festivals, because firstly, it's a stream of currency. If you know distribution laws, when you break up the rights, online rights are very different to cinematic rights, and they're very different to festival rights. So each one of those you can make money off. And if you're going straight to Netflix, you're not making money off the cinematic circuit. That's for sure.
No way. And so a lot of people are going to have to do that now. After this lockup period, their films are just going to be shelved.
Yeah. So festivals become a really good intermediary where they go to festivals, do a week or two circuit, then get released onto Netflix, or vice versa. Netflix picks them up from the festivals.
Yeah. So there are a couple of questions. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say. So I think everyone who's yapping on about Netflix is they're the same old dinosaurs that don't like change generally. Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable now with the whole online streaming world. Alana, you had two more questions. Do you want to address him, Stefan, before he leaves?
Yeah, I was just, when Maggie asked about the situation, the coronavirus situation, I was just asking if you could get any financial support from the government.
That's a really good question. I really hope we can. I haven't looked into it myself. Catherine, the other director, is going to look at that. I pray that we can.
About whether because that is a business that you have. I mean, it is a company, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're having loss. You must have loss, even though you don't necessarily profit from it. You still have loss from it as well.
That's one of the questions we're going to ask them. Like, if we don't run, and because we're not for profit, officially not for profit, so a not for profit's eligible. So
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. That's an interesting question.
And you also had another question, Alina. What is the title of the Chinese film? I can't remember, but if you go into last year's festival, you'll see it's the only Chinese film we screened.
And also, when I was going through what's that? I've never gone to that place before. The online journal that you put us on. What was it called? The one where your articles were, Stefan. Any.
Where my article was, or
yeah.
I don't know where that was. I just wrote it. I got asked to write.
Yeah, don't worry about it. The journal, anyway, the journal that your article was in, online journal. For everyone here, I found a fantastic article for you about Chinese festivals. So I thought that it would be really interesting for you to look at. It talks about funding and the kind of festivals that are in China. I'll send you I'm putting the link into the Canvas site, because I think, with this, I mean, I just want to remind everybody that the possibility of using these talks, just want to reiterate it, that these talks are what you need to use inside your report journal, which is the blog, as well as the possibility of referencing the talk and the articles in your essay. So you can reference all the talks, or you could specifically reference one talk. Yeah, is that clear? Does that make sense? I need to have some nodding heads. Thank you. Okay, can I say? Okay, thank you, Stefan. That was great. Very good.
Thank you. All right, I'll see you later.
Keep everybody here for a minute. The others. Don't forget to turn off your picture before you stand up where you've only got underpants on.
All right, on that note, I'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. That worked well.